Well, here we go. Welcome to In the Spotlight with Kathleen and Jeannie. And on the phone with us is State Representative Dan Caulkins. Dan is from the Decatur area, and he is one of 5 courageous, actually intelligent and smart state representatives down there who refused to vote for the bogus ethics reform legislation that now Carol Porter, the current legislative inspector general, has resigned over, saying that she cannot do her job adequately given the requirements of this new legislative action on ethics and her particular role in that. So, Dan, what did you know that nobody else seemed to know except for 4 other state reps in central and southern Illinois? What did you know about this ethics bill that was not quite right?
Well, thank you for this opportunity to talk to your audience, Jeannie, and it's a pleasure to be with you this morning. We really didn't have a lot of time to look at the ethics bill, as the Democrats are wont to do in Springfield. They spring things on you, like at the last minute and go, okay, well, here's the bill. You got to vote on it, tomorrow morning or this afternoon, or in some cases in a half an hour. So I had an opportunity to look at it. I read it. I had some serious questions about it. There were other parts of the bill that were somewhat okay, but this thing on the legislative IG just set off a red light with me. And I go, this isn't right. Yes, it's ethics reform in the form of a financial disclosure. But then the debate on the House floor was even more, illuminating. It came out on the House floor that on this revolving door part of it, that if you resigned your seat early before the end of your term, you could essentially come back the next day as a lobbyist. I mean, this thing was crafted so poorly.
And wait a minute, let's just stop right there, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there were probably 4 Democrat state reps who went through the election process in 2020, got elected, ran for election like they were going to fully go and through their entire commitment of 2 years, and then immediately resigned just shortly after taking office, which means that they could have, well, this wouldn't have been in effect at that time, but had it been in effect, they could have ran for election, got seated, and resigned the next day and then started up a lobbying career.
Absolutely. That's just one part of it that really set me off. And the other part, obviously, was the IG part. Not many people know this, but one of our members had 5 ethics complaints filed against him. And he's a friend of ours. And just he asked me if I would accompany him to the IG Inquisition interview, which I did. And it was an amazing experience. So when this quote, reform showed up, I had experienced what the IG did, and I knew that this bill was not going to satisfy the requirements that we've had as a caucus to reform this whole, slate of lax ethics rules. So it wasn't really that hard for me to vote no. I felt it was a pretty informed vote, really.
Yeah, no, it's remarkable, though, that other people just said, well, because it's got a little bit it pushes the needle a little bit forward in other areas, we're going to go for it. But I think looking back now, of them, and you've got legislators now coming out saying.
Though, but you can kind of see where, like, Republicans they know they're getting, because of the way the maps are being drawn, they know they're going to be at risk, and they're going to have tough challenges, and not everybody's in a safe seat, and so they have to go, well, I can't. It's real easy for them to say voted against ethics reform in Illinois. It's really easy for an opponent to say that. So you can see where they don't want to take a no vote for that. You guys are in safer seats, but I think a lot of people felt like something is better than nothing, but you see, like, when you get into the details of the bill, there were specific things that actually made it worse. And now we have a resignation of an officer that we needed. I mean, it took a massive Me Too disaster for that that to be filled.
Well,
and now she's gone because of what this bill did. This Democrat bill did.
But don't you feel vindicated by your vote now with her resignation, Dan?
Also, I'm saddened that it had to happen that way. I mean, I felt that my vote was the proper vote when I took it. I had really no idea that the legislative inspector general would retire because of the inability to perform her duties. But to Kathleen's point, and that was, I think, the rationale for many of the members in the House, not just the Republicans, that something is better than nothing. That kind of, makes my skin crawl.
Sure.
But I understand the legislative process, and it's step by step, and you have to have some compromises. But the real issue here is we had no input. The Republicans had absolutely no input into this quote reform bill. And Jeanne, as you fought for this, and I, from my first week in office, I've been banging the desk and talking to my constituents and anybody that would listen, that we needed to reform the ethics atmosphere in the General Assembly. And in 2019, we formed this big ethics commission. It's bipartisan, and we're going to meet and we're going to come up with something. And of course, nothing happened. And then COVID, and we didn't meet. Then we came back, and no ethics bill. And so they had to put something on the table. It's really interesting that the Democrats would put together what they consider ethics. And if this is what their ethics reform looks like, people need to know they have absolutely no interest in being ethical.
Right.
I mean, that's just the bottom line.
Well, it does seem to me that at certain points, Republicans could have taken a caucus position on something as important as ethics and made a grand stand about it and stood united together opposed to this legislation, because obviously it's a scam. It's all a sham. Again, on everybody here, everybody knows it. The Democrats are as corrupt as get out. They've been running things for a long time, and with, apparently the voters, though, the voters don't get it. They don't understand.
Well, and to Dan's point, Democrats were entirely in charge of this bill and this process. Republicans had no input. I mean, listening to a Springfield Democrat talk about ethics is like listening to Charlie Sheen give relationship advice. It's just pointless, and you're not going to get anything of value out of it. But you've both been in the legislature, so what would an adequate ethics reform bill look like should Republicans ever get to give input into such a thing?
Well, that's a good question, and it's something that we've worked on. Let's just go to the IG. The IG has to report to a committee, and the committee is in fact balanced. It's 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans. And if the IG comes with a finding that in this case it's a her, if she finds that there's probable cause to investigate some ethical problem, the committee that she reports to has to vote in the affirmative. Okay, so if there's 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans, and she finds findings against the Democrats, all they have to say, 4 of them say no, that goes nowhere.
Right.
That should be reformed.
Plus,
it should be reformed to the fact that if the committee does not want to move forward with an investigation, it has to have a majority vote to not move forward.
Yes.
So it should be there should be 5 to 3 to not continue an investigation. That would be one of the very first things that I'd do.
Absolutely. And it appears to me that also reading the language of the bill, that essentially the legislative inspector general herself, in this case a her, like you said, it has in the past been a guy, by the way, but in this case, she does not even have independent subpoena power. She also has to go to the commission for approval on that. And that's a huge investigatory tool and that she doesn't have in her toolbox.
Correct. Now, that's just one part of this that
Yes.
relates to her.
Yes.
The other part is the financial disclosure. The Republican caucus had asked for a financial disclosure that the justices, our Supreme Court judges, use. We felt that that was a disclosure form that was more than adequate, a lot better than what we currently have. And it's already been vetted, it's been used, it's been tried. But no, the Democrats had to come up with this new financial disclosure reform that nobody's seen, has not been put in use yet. And, we'll see what happens. I didn't feel that, I felt that that was kind of a slap in the face or dodging a bullet. We've already talked about the revolving door for lobbyists. I think any legislator who has served, I don't care if they've only served one day in the General Assembly, they should be barred from lobbying for a year. 1 year after they excuse themselves or lose an election. They should be barred from lobbying at any level. State, city, county, I don't care what it is. They should be barred from lobbying any governmental entity for 1 year.
Well, it'll be interesting what you guys now do as a caucus in the wake of Miss Porter's resignation as the LIG. And I just applaud you taking a very courageous vote in the wake of possibly being slammed for not voting for ethics reform. We know that it was a scam bill. That's been proven up. But do you mind, Dan, if we turn to your recent energy tour that you took?
Yeah.
Certainly.
That'd be great.
I don't mind.
Good. So the last 2 days, you, in the wake of legislation that is being negotiated behind closed doors with special interests and the governor's staff as to what is going to our energy situation is going to look like in the future, everything from cutting out coal and gas to massive subsidies for nuclear power to even more massive subsidies on a per kilowatt hour to wind and solar, all at the expense of ratepayers and taxpayers. It was a pretty interesting tour. Can you just give us a glimpse of what you saw and what was the bottom line coming out of that?
Well, it was a very informative tour for me, having an opportunity to go see a coal-fired generator and, see the great big solar farm that's out there. 1,600 acres of solar panels, who I almost undoubtedly have come from China, made by slave labor. We're outsourcing our energy needs to China. We're talking about, EVs and going green, and yet we want to subsidize the Chinese Communist government and their slave labor, for the Uyghurs. It's really that alone should alarm people. But we also toured the Clinton nuclear power station. The bottom line, Jeannie, is I learned that every energy producer, every generator that we have in the state of Illinois is running at capacity. They're making as much electricity as they can possibly generate. And that's wind and solar too. Yep. But they're making as much as they can possibly generate, and it's still not enough. We still have they're not called brownouts, but they're situations where companies have to reduce their power usage because there's not enough electricity on the grid to power them and to power hospitals and nursing homes and people's houses and air conditioning during these peak periods. And we have a governor and a handful of Democrats and some green radical lobbyists who are trying to cut out our base generating ability. And I tell people, you want to know what that looks like? Look at Texas during the polar vortex. Look at California today, rolling brownouts. They cannot support the needs, current needs. And now we're talking about 1 million new EVs the governor wants to have in the state of Illinois. And we're going to power that with a totally inefficient and an unreliable grid powered by solar and wind. It's impossible. It's a scam. It's a way to bilk the ratepayers for their green ideology. And it's not based on science or facts.
Well, and the other thing is that you just said it. It's not based on science or facts. And I know I was watching your Facebook Live video there outside the Clinton power plant, and at the very end, you all got together and called out, your Democrat state legislators called out Governor Pritzker specifically and said, go do the energy tour that we did. I think that a lot of decisions are made behind closed doors, and these legislators that are voting on policy have no idea the reality behind the policy that they're voting on. Isn't that the case?
Well, yes. I mean, and I think that's our duty as elected officials, to be informed, make informed decisions for the people of Illinois. And unless you understand what's going on, now you can have an ideology and 100% green by 2050, but that's an ideology. That's not a reality. And what we're going to do if we allow these people to make the decisions that they're trying to make is that we're going to have a state where no one is going to come and build a plant, and the people that are here are going to leave. And this state will look like Michigan or these places where they've just absolutely ruined their economy. And to the point about the governor, if you're going to shut down somebody's business, if you're going to close a coal-fired or gas-fired or nuclear power plant, have the guts to go face those people.
Yeah.
Have the guts to come down here to Clinton and go into this power plant and tell those people, 650 people, that you're out to take their jobs away. Tell the people in this community that you're out to wreck their economy. To come and do it face to face. Don't hide in Chicago behind closed doors with a bunch of radical green lobbyists and just slough it off. Well, we're going to save the planet. That's a bunch of BS.
Well,
come and face us.
There is no clear strategy, so how could he? I mean, there's no clear strategy for the implementation of this one way or the other. Is there? That I haven't seen anything. And he's setting up, he's going to put Illinois at risk of being in crisis that will put lives in danger with an energy crisis, because our modern infrastructure is set up to run on coal and gas. In addition to nuclear, in addition to the elimination of jobs and industry for thousands of people. Have you seen a strategy from any Democrat for the implementation of this?
Only slogans.
Yep.
That's right. Slogans, not strategy.
Yep. Symbols, slogans, and slurs. That's how they communicate.
That's all it is.
That is. That's it.
I put up an interesting little fact yesterday. In 2020 in the United States of our country, green energy, renewable energy accounted for, I want to say 12% of the energy production in this country. Inside that data, solar accounted for 11% of that.
Of the 12%. 11% of the 12%.
11% of the 12%.
Which is like 1 to 2%, 1.5%.
Okay. And wood-fired generators outperformed solar generators in our country in 2020.
Yeah, well, Cass would be happy about that.
Yes.
We made more electricity in wood-fired generators, that's probably pellets and whatnot,
which releases
than we
an
did
awful
with
lot of
solar.
CO2.
You know when you fire that, though, when you fire that wood-fired generator, when you do that, you give off 1.5 times the amount of CO2 than coal does. 1.5 times, because we're hot on this issue. You just hit our hot button.
Yes.
Dan, you didn't even know that. You hit our hot button.
No.
Because Sean Casten is personally invested.
Congressman Sean Casten, green energy.
In biomass electrical and energy. He's personally invested into the tune of over $500,000. And yet he's calling for all sorts of more subsidies to that particular industry. At the same time, he's climbing climate alarm. You know what? You won't pay off your 30-year mortgage in your house in Louisiana because the seas are going to raise too high, and you're actually going to be literally underwater before your mortgage is underwater. So this guy is climate alarmist. He's invested in biomass, and it gives off 1.5 times the amount of CO2 as coal. I mean, these guys are scam artists from the get-go, from top to bottom. from Ann Williams sitting in Chicago to Sean Casten sitting in DuPage County. These guys are nothing but what you said. A slogan, a slur, and a...
Symbols, slogans, and slurs is how they
That's exactly what they
communicate.
are.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, we're going to talk more with you about this entire energy situation in the state of Illinois. Energy is super important to us.
Yeah.
Overall, when you look at the energy that we actually create in the state of Illinois versus the energy that we use in the Illinois, we are considered an energy export from that standpoint. However, we know that every particular entity is working at max capacity right now, and we're actually going to have to import energy if they go down this crazy path.
Well, we already are.
Yes, we are importing some.
We are. I mean, the coal mine that we visited on our energy tour gets its electricity from Indiana.
That's true. That
of all
is right.
places.
That's right.
And I mean, their electric provider is across the border in Indiana. They don't even use the electricity that's generated in Illinois to run that coal mine. And that's a huge operation. Huge.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because that plant, I think that I don't know, I think they said they use 40 megawatts of power just to fuel that operation. So it's pretty amazing. And then 100% of the coal that they extract from that Alliance coal plant in Hamilton County is not used in the state of Illinois. It goes across state lines 100%. We're not even using Illinois coal in Illinois. No, but other states are burning it and then sending it back our way.
Right. Oh yeah, no. Yeah. They're exporting coal, trainloads of coal, exporting it out of Illinois. They're running 3 shifts, 7 days a week, trying to keep up with the demand.
Yeah.
And none of it is being used in Illinois because for our, I don't know, I guess our governor and a bunch of greenies have decided
to shut down coal.
We shouldn't. Yeah, to shut down coal. When it's relative. I mean, it's really one of the cheapest forms of energy. Modern technology is here today. More technology is in the works as far as sequestration, but the scrubbers are working. They're taking the sulfur out. They're taking all this stuff out of the coal emissions.
Yep.
And the next thing they're working on is carbon sequestration, which Illinois is uniquely situated to do. We have a very unique place in the geography of this country, and that we have the way to sequester carbon dioxide you don't want admitted into the atmosphere.
Well, and Pritzker put about $8 million for that particular experimental stuff on carbon sequestration in his own budget. He put it in there because they're also getting federal money to support that as well. So
so everybody understands what else all is in this energy bill, and it relates back to the ethics problem that we have here in Illinois that we were talking about earlier. In this bill, if I'm not mistaken, Democrats put in a bailout for Exelon and Commonwealth Edison, even though ComEd is under indictment for having orchestrated a massive bribery scheme in Springfield. Is that not right? As large as, was it $700 million in subsidies?
Well, let me just give you a different take on that.
Okay. Yes, please do.
All right.
Yes.
Because I think Exelon was extorted.
Okay.
Mike Madigan is the extorter in chief.
Okay.
And I believe that he went to those people, not him personally, but we've seen Mapes and we've seen these other people have been indicted for their role.
McLean.
I think the word went out to these guys. If you want anything done, if you want your energy, if you want your company to have any opportunity to operate in Illinois, you'd better play ball with Mike Madigan.
Sure, I believe that. I could see it that way, yeah.
So I don't think they were bribing the Democrats in Springfield. I think Madigan and his people were extorting that company. That's why they agreed to a plea deal. That's why they said, okay, yeah, we should have probably turned this into you guys, but we went along with it. It was wrong. We're paying $200 million, and we're going to fully cooperate with you. I believe they were extorted.
I'm willing to believe just about anything about Mike Madigan and his cronies. So
Dan, we've gone a little long because you hit our hot button when you started talking about biomass. So we had to kind of like go off on a tangent there, as we're wont to do. But I tell you what, thanks for this enlightening conversation, both on the Legislative Inspector General situation down there and the energy in the state of Illinois. We're going to have you definitely back on for a further discussion, probably on both these topics and more. So we appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you very much. Pleasure speaking with you, and have a great weekend. We'll talk again the next week or two, because this is unfolding as we speak.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.